Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Alive, a Korean horror film from 2020. It's brand spanking new. So the film begins with our protagonist, Joon-woo, who's a bit of a sleepyhead. His alarm goes off at 10 a.m. and he's having trouble getting out of bed. He eventually gets up and walks into his pretty awesome gaming room to play with his internet buddies, some games. Unfortunately for him, his game is cut short because a zombie outbreak occurs. Unable to immediately escape, he struggles to survive in his isolated apartment complex. Now to start, let me say this. If you're planning on skipping this movie because it's just another zombie film, I think you're making a mistake. This is a little different. So the film gets rolling, really within the opening 5 minutes, because our protagonist's internet friends see the news reports of what's happening outside in the city, and they inform him that something bad is going down. In most zombie movies, it's kind of a slower build-up, like you see how the virus initially spreads. Not in this one. Since it's almost entirely from the perspective of our one protagonist, the film starts during the outbreak, and the situation has already gone completely out of control when the first zombies show up at our protagonist's apartment complex, again within the opening 5 minutes. So the film begins like during the outbreak. I like this because it immediately establishes one of the main themes of the film: isolation and not knowing what's happening in the outside world. The film taps into the psychological pressures of being in a zombie apocalypse and not being able to even leave your apartment because of the dangers that lurk outside. Modes of communication with the outside world begin to deteriorate, and you're not sure how long this is going to last. You're trying to survive on what little food you have left, but you're also beginning to question whether it's even worth surviving. Because after a while, you're looking outside your window, it's like, is there anything even left out there? Maybe there's nothing left to live for. And I think Alive does a very good job at developing that theme. The lead actor is In-yu, who most viewers will recognize from the film Burning, which just came out a few years ago. He carries the film, he's our lead, and he earns your sympathy. Shin-hye Park, who is an actress that I like quite a bit, shows up a little bit later and plays a very important role. Now, I do not want to spoil anything, but I will say that when she shows up, things become even more interesting. I really like the situational script writing in this film. It consistently keeps you interested in what's happening, despite the fact that it's a very simple setup with limited locations. You can tell the scriptwriters put some thought and effort into the specific situations that occur in the film. There are some subtleties that you might miss if you're not paying close attention as well. Now, in terms of horror content, I think it works well. I like the wide shots of chaos early on. I mean, this guy's like on his balcony in his apartment looking down, and it's pretty horrific, the stuff that's going on. Nicely executed. There are a few good zombie attack scenes that are spaced out to assist pacing. All of these scenes are nicely staged with some creativity regarding the attacks themselves and how our protagonist attempts to survive them. It's kind of difficult to describe, but I think the aforementioned situational script writing has something to do with it. So, for example, there are multiple scenes involving the balconies of the apartment, as well as a drone that I've never really seen in a zombie film before. There's a baseball rope scene, so to speak, which is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. And you'll know what I'm talking about when you watch the movie. You haven't quite seen anything like that before. And it's nice to see a little bit of creativity there. The zombie makeup, very effective. They look nasty. There are some conventional and perhaps unrealistic aspects to the film that pop up now and again, but I forgive it because the characters and the drama are compelling. If the drama did not work, I would have disliked the more conventional elements that play out, because then the film would have been relying on those elements instead of the characters, but that's not the case here, so I don't mind. The other thing that might disappoint some viewers is that this is kind of a small film, so to speak, in terms of the number of characters, the scope, the action. You're not going to get that high-octane like zombie mayhem that you get in Train to Busan, say. And I'm fine with that, because the characters worked for me. The horror is plentiful enough, but it's used to supplement the drama, and I think it really works. I think Alive is actually way better than what I was expecting going into it. You know, when I heard, oh, it's another zombie film, and the guy's kind of trapped in his apartment. All right. You know, and it was way better than I thought it would be. It's a very character-driven horror film with a heart to it. It has heart. It's got good pacing. It's only 98 minutes long, which is pretty short for a Korean film. Definitely worth checking out. I recommend this. It's currently available on Netflix in the United States. But one final point I want to make is that I also saw a different film recently. And I think Alive has some similarities to a French film, a horror film from 2018 called The Night Eats the World, which has kind of a similar premise. You know, a dude is trapped in an apartment complex with a zombie outbreak. I mean, it's not necessarily that unique of a premise, but I would not be surprised if this Korean film was inspired by that film. And the Korean film does it way better. Like, the French film has significant pacing issues. Not really all that interesting, in my opinion. But I think we have a situation like we had with The Thieves. Remember The Thieves, the Korean film, which was kind of obviously inspired by Ocean's 11, but it was better than all the Ocean's films anyway. So I think Korea pulled a fast one. You know, they might have taken some inspiration, but just one-upped the original film. So I think this film's pretty solid. And yeah, check this out. And as always, I'll see you next time.